While we meet today on a virtual platform, it is customary to begin our events with a territorial acknowledgement. We acknowledge that Concordia's campuses are located on unceded Indigenous lands. The Ganyo-Gehaga Nation is recognized as the custodian of the lands and waters on and near where Concordia is today. Montreal, or Jojage, is historically known as a gathering place for many First Nations. Today, it is home to a diverse population of Indigenous and other peoples. We respect the continued connections with the past, present, and future in our ongoing relationships with Indigenous and other peoples within the Montreal community. As I mentioned, this webinar is part of the Women Who Lead program for Concordia Community, which creates opportunities for our alumni to learn, network, and give back to our community. Je suis ravie de voir autant de personnes avec nous aujourd'hui. Avant de commencer, nous allons montrer une courte vidéo. Before starting, we always like to show our Women Who Lead video.
Pillars of our communities, trailblazers in our fields, mentors to the next generation. Concordia's women are breaking down barriers as change makers. We are women who learn, women who empower, women who aspire, women who dare. We are women who lead.
Sorry about that, I was on mute. Pour votre information, nous enregistrons cette session et nous partagerons l'enregistrement dans les prochaines semaines. We will be recording the session and we'll share it in the coming weeks. If you happen to have any tech issues, feel free to drop a message in the chat and my colleagues, Shanna and Katie, will do our best to assist you. Please note that there will be a Q&A period at the end of the webinar, so please use your chat to ask your questions. So let's get things started. Our speaker today is Beverly Wilks, a financial coach and blogger at baconandheels.com. Beverly is a seasoned marketing leader with a career spanning over 2 decades in both B2B and B2C domains. Her professional journey began as a database manager in the advertising industry. She then transitioned into high-tech sectors, bringing her expertise to various senior marketing roles in gaming, aerospace, and most recently, the security industry. In her current capacity, Beverly serves as the Senior Product Manager and Team Lead for the cybersecurity practice at Bell. Here, she spearheads marketing initiatives that inform and empower organizations to address security challenges with software solutions. Beyond her corporate career, Beverly is a financial literacy blogger on a mission to help people eliminate debt, learn to invest, save money, and build real wealth. She is regularly featured on news programs, and I had the pleasure of watching her first appearance last week on CTV's The Social. Beverly, we're so happy to have you here. The mic is all yours.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Welcome everybody to this session. I'm excited to be here. I'm going to share my screen now so you can see what we're going to be talking about. And what Sylvia said, it is all about money, how we make it, how we spend it, more importantly, how we invest it. So let's get started. I'm eager to get this moving. All right, so are we ready to talk about money? I hope we are. What I noticed is doing a lot of research in this area, women are more likely to speak about their relationships, politics, and even their health than talk about money. And I really hope that we are able to change that today. So here is what I want us to go through. We're going to get ready, figuring out how do you start saving, investing, taking care of your money? How do you really get into investing? I want us to change our ideas a little bit about budgeting and think about a spending plan. We'll dive into that. We're going to talk about retirement, nipping and really tackling that debt. And then at the end, how do you own your money? It's a phrase that I started a year ago, and it really rings true. How do we take care of our own money for ourselves? So let's hop in. All right. The first thing I always tell people when they come and they talk about their money, the first thing I talk about is, well, where do you stand today? This is a tool that I'm going to have available to you after this event, and you can download it as well on my website, baconheels.com, where we really get into you taking control of your money and determining what your net worth is. So essentially, net worth is just that. It's figuring out where you are on your financial journey and taking a great snapshot of everything that you own, all of your assets, minus everything that you owe, all your liabilities. And the number at the end of that really determines where you stand today. Now, from that number, what you're going to do with it is really think about, okay, so now I know where I am, where do I want to go? Money cannot only be about saving and paying bills, we have to live a little bit as well. So having a plan of what it is that you want to do with your money, this is the first step in getting there. So essentially, as you can see here on the right side of the screen, we really get into all the things, all of your assets, all of your liabilities, and then at the end, really deliver a number to you. So that means you gotta open up all those files, open up all those accounts, and really take a good look at where you stand today. The next thing, once you know where you are, then the big thing is, well, how do I start investing? I get a lot of questions about this. And when I think about investing, people often say to me, well, where do I start? I'm a little bit older. Does that mean it's too late for me? And then how much do I invest? And then where do I invest? How do I actually get this moving? And I think the main item is it is never too late to start investing. Would I love everybody to start investing right after university in our early 20s? The answer is yes. But life gives it what it does. And sometimes you cannot start early. So even if you're 30, 40, 50, 60, I really don't care what age you are. I like you just to start. So starting late is great because you are absolutely starting. So let's talk about what investing is not before we get into how you actually start moving along. Investing is certainly not jumping on a hot stock. I'm sure you heard the news this week. NVIDIA, a great organization, stock has been doing amazing things, and everybody started jumping on it at $700 a share. I don't think that's the right way. I really believe what's exciting about investing is finding something that works for you and holding it for the long term. Investing is also not buying only stocks or mutual funds. There's tons of things that you can do with your money in terms of investing. I always encourage people to go and visit their financial planner or your bank. Remember, I'm a financial coach, I'm not a planner, but going to those banks and your financial planners can help you really pick items that are working for you and your family. And last but not least, investing is certainly not only for people that are wealthy. Everybody and anybody could be an investor. And what's really exciting is the democratization of investing by having your own account, by having the ability to have a discount broker, because now some banks allow trades as low as $8. And in the olden days, quote unquote, you need to go through a broker to make that happen for you, and that could have been hundreds of dollars. So banks really recognize that people want to take this on themselves, and they've allowed us to do that by providing us with all this great information. So let's talk about the steps you need to take. It's great to say what you should be doing, but how do you actually get there? So the first thing I always like to talk about is determine your timeline. As the saying goes, the best time to plant a tree was yesterday. And I believe the same holds true for investing. So let's get started whenever you could start investing and determine, hey, I want to invest starting today, 40, and then I want to use this money when I'm 60, 65 in my golden years. That's great. You have a timeline. Next, how much to invest? It all depends on what your financial responsibilities are. We all have, rents and mortgages and debt, savings, paying for kids' school, paying for your own school. So we need to really figure out how much can you allocate each month in order to invest. And I think that's really important because how we choose our funds that we're going to use today is going to really impact how we live tomorrow. And it's really important to invest the money that you can spare each month or that you feel comfortable with. It's not what your friends or your partner or what the market tells you. You really determine for you how much you want to spend because it's your money and you're in the driver's seat. The third thing to do, I know maybe it sounds obvious, but open an investing account. So you open an investing account with your financial planner or at a bank, and that's just the first step of getting that organized. And one thing that's really interesting, I met a lady a couple of weeks ago. She said, Bev, I had this great account. It's open. I put money in it every year. Nothing's moving. It's because she opened the account, which is great. I'm super excited. She put in a nice chunk of money every year. It was $5,000 into her account, but she didn't buy anything. She didn't put it in a GIC or an ETF. So she did part 1 and 2. She got the account, put in some money. Then she needed to put it to work. And that's what we did together. We went to her bank and had a conversation about where she should be investing this money. The fourth step to take is determining what your options are. So people think it's only about buying a stock, which is great. You know, a stock is a share of ownership within a company. So things like Costco, stores, restaurants, anything, those are, if they're on the market, you could buy them as an equity. They're bonds, which is really a loan to a company or a government entity. And then the government or the entity that says, I'm going to pay you back a certain amount of money in a certain number of years with a great interest. There could be mutual funds as well, ETFs. There's a variety of different things that you could be investing that money. And that's what my friend did a couple of weeks ago. She took that money, invested it in an ETF, and that is now working for her. So she put that money to work in this account. And then the last thing is about following your investments. So once you've opened that account, you started to build this great portfolio and you want to track it to be sure that it's performing in the way that you would like it to perform. The big thing I always tell people, you cannot look at that money every single day. You're going to drive yourself bonkers. The markets go up and down. Sometimes it gives you whiplash, but at the same time, if you look at it once a month, once a quarter, and really see how it's going, on the long term, most likely you will see that you're making more money. I typically like to take a Monday afternoon or a Saturday morning, get a cup of coffee, sit down and look once a month. Either the first Saturday or the last Saturday of the month is what I like to do. So now that you know the steps to take, what do you actually do with this money? And today, yes, it is a leap year. It's also the last day of the month of February. And today is the deadline for you to submit your funds and contribute to your RSP. So we're going to dive into this a little bit because I certainly get a lot of questions about what are the differences and similarities between an RSP and a TFSA, and how do you choose where to invest that money in each of these vehicles. So let's start with the first one, an RSP. So it is a registered retirement savings plan. And this is for our golden years. The contribution limit is 18% of the previous year's income. So if we're talking about this year's, whatever money you made in 2023, you're allowed to put up to 18% of that earned income to a maximum of $30,780. The thing that's really exciting about the RSP is it's really a tax deduction. It's a shelter for today. So as you do your taxes in 2024, let's say you made $50,000 and you put in $5,000 into your RSP. This shelters you by lowering your income to $45,000. And then that is what you're going to be taxed on. And it's a great vehicle for planning for our future. The more money we have, I always say it's better to have more than less. And having these years while we're working to put this money to work, when we hit our retirement age, that is the money we are going to draw upon. Make sure that there are things that you could do with your RSP. Like if you like to take it out for a first home that you like to purchase, you're allowed to take out a little bit of money for that, which is great. It allows you to leverage those funds that you've been putting aside for a new home. The only thing is you need to pay it back in 15 years. If you take out money not for a home, which is highly not recommended, you are really taxable at a rate of up to 40%. So you really got to be careful about that. You could have a spousal plan. If you are married, you're allowed to put money into a second account. So I'll give you an example. Let's say two people are married. One person makes more than the other. If the person who makes more than the other puts money in his or her RSP, they could also take some money and give it to the spouse so that they could fill up their RSP as well. And that's really exciting because then both people are getting the benefit of the RSP. TFSA, which I think is absolutely wonderful, it's a tax-free savings account. The use for this is for any real purpose. You could save for a car, a house, invest, whatever you would like. And the beauty of a TFSA is that it is after-tax dollars. It's using after-tax dollars. And there's a contribution limit. You're allowed to put up to $7,000 in 2024 into your account. Now, because it's after-tax dollars, any gains that you make in this is 100% tax-free. So let's say, just to make it easy, let's say you took $7,000, you popped it in to your TFSA account, you bought a great stock that you love, and let's say that $7,000 turned into $21,000. So you made 3 times your revenue. That $14,000 that you made as a profit is 100% tax-free. There's no expiration date on this, but unfortunately, there's no spousal plan. The great thing about this is if you put money since the inception of this, you could have invested over $80,000. And I know that's a lot of money. That's why if you started, when it started, I think it was $5,000 was the first year, then it went to $5,500 for a number of years. The long term of leveraging this is really helpful for anybody who's looking just to save for any purpose. So that's the difference between RSPs and TFSAs. Please ask your questions in the chat box, and then we'll respond to those at the end of the session, because I'm sure people have questions about this. Now let's talk about saving and budgeting. I think everybody has a number. I would like you to think about a number that you would like to save in 2024. A good friend of mine as well came to me a couple of years ago and said, Bev, I need to save $10,000 this year. How do I actually do it? And one thing that I gave her was we were getting paid 26 times a year. So we took that 10,000 divided by 26, and that was the actual number that she was going to save each and every paycheck. And what she did was she went online to her account at her bank and made sure that she took that money and allocated it to a savings account. But the beauty was she made it automatic. So that means she knew all the dates when we were getting paid, and she just made a little rule online, really simple, that every time she gets paid on X date, let's say it was $300, went from her checking to her savings account. And at the end of the year, she had that $10,000. So I want you to think about what is the number you would like to save in 2024, and then let's build a plan to get you there and allocate those savings to help you get to where you would like to be. So when it comes to budgeting, I've said this many, many times, I'm saying it again, I don't think budgeting works. I think the word budgeting is constricting. I think it's often seen as complicated, and it's really not fun to be putting things in an Excel spreadsheet. So I like to call budgeting a different word, and I like to call it a spending plan. I would like us to allocate our money differently. I like us to do this thing that I'm calling the 20-50-20-10 rule. I would like us, every time you get paid, to pay yourself first. Now, these are just numbers that I find that works. You got to find a percentage that works for you. So let's say you get paid today, Thursday, the 29th of February. And if you can, you would allocate some money to you first. Before anybody gets paid, you get paid first. You are the CEO of your own money. Then you would go and pay your essentials, like your rent, your mortgage, utility bills, internet, and the like. Then you put 20% towards your debt, and then 10% needs to be for fun. I'm a big believer in we cannot only be paying bills and hustling and going crazy. We need to allocate some money for having fun. And I think this allocation is very important, because when you know that it's okay, you've allocated your spending plan to put that 10% towards something that you would like, something that gives you joy, then there's no psychological, oh, geez, I shouldn't have done that. I'm going to put it on my credit card and I can't afford it, because you know you're okay. Now, these is not a fast and hard rule. If you can only pay yourself 2%, 5%, 10%, great. Do what's good for you, but I really want you to think about allocating your money in these 4 buckets. And when you do pay yourself, you could pay yourself, that could be your investment account, that could be another savings account in your TFSA, whatever you would like. But that for me is really important, because at the end of the year, all your bills got paid, right? Your phone bill, utility, your rent, your mortgage, you also got paid too. So next thing I want to talk about is retiring. Some of us are closer to it than others. Sometimes I also think that retiring is not really an age. Sometimes I think it's really a number. We have friends that have retired and they were 55, 56 years old. They had saved up enough that they were fortunate enough to do that. The circumstances in their lives afforded them to do that. Some other people are like, I don't want to retire. I want to be working till I'm in my 70s because I love it and I enjoy it. I have 2 friends that are doctors and they said that. They're going to be working till they're in their 70s because it really gives them joy. So whatever or however you plan to retire, I want you to think that it's never too late to start to plan. But how are we actually doing this? The big thing when it comes to retirement is it doesn't need to be complicated. Everybody thinks it's all this craziness. I got to save X amount and put it here and do this and do that. And I don't know how much I need to save. But in actuality, it's really quite simple. Typically, people will live on less money when they're retired, because at that time, typically, you don't have a mortgage, the kids are out of the house, you may not be able to have a large home, you may want to reduce the size and downsize. So the formula is like this. Let's say your current income is $75,000. The rule, I'm using air quotes here, is that you could possibly live on 70% of that income in your golden years. So 70% of 75K is 52.5. If you multiply 52.5 by 25 years, this is the average years people could be in retirement. If you're going to retire earlier, maybe it's 30 or 35 years. But for this example, we're using 25 years. That equals 1.3 million. That would need to be saved to retire on $70,000, $52,500 a year for 25 years. Now, do not panic. We in Canada have the luxury of having QPP, OPP if you're from Ontario. We have our other EI benefits. If you have a pension at work, that would also account into this, your RSP, your cash savings. There's a variety of other areas that you could be drawing upon to make up that number. So I want you to remember, when I first started this session, we talked about your net worth. We talked about the assets. All those accounts that you have are going to be included in those assets. And that's going to help you understand where you are today so that you can figure out where you would like to be tomorrow. We do have a couple of questions that came in on this, and I'll definitely address those at the end of the session. So now that we know where we are with our net worth, we understand where we are in terms of how we allocate our money. We understand as well, how do I actually plan for retirement? We are going to our bank and we're talking with them and our financial planners to help us create this financial journey. The last thing I really want to dive into is talking about debt. Everybody has debt. Credit card debt, school debt, mortgage debt, some kind of debt, car debt. As we get older, hopefully those debts are getting fewer or getting less. And I think we need to find a way to crush some of this debt. So I'll go through, there's two ways to tackle it. The first one is called the snowball, the debt snowball. And if we use an example of credit cards, let's say you have 3 credit cards. One has $1,000, the second one has $5,000 on it, and the third one has $10,000 on it. In order for you to pay it down, I would ask you to start with this debt snowball approach, which is where you start paying off the smallest debt first. So you would start with the $1,000 credit card debt. Why I'm asking you to do this is because psychologically, you're going to feel better about moving it over because you were able to nip that one off quickly. And then you move on to the second and the third debt. But what I want you to think about, and I'm only going to say this in this one time, is I want you to put all your energy on that first debt and then pay the minimum on the second and third debt, just the minimum payments. It's the only time I'm going to say that. While you're nipping that one, once that first one is done, then you move over to the second one, you hammer that one home, and then you move over to the third one. That's the first approach to tackling debt. The second approach to tackling debt is called the debt avalanche, which is where you put your money towards the credit card with the highest interest rate first, or the debt with the highest interest rate first. Did you know the average credit card interest rate now for like the big ones are 19.9, which is a lot. But for store credit cards, it goes up to 29.9% interest. So depending on where you are and your debt on your debt journey, I really want you to pull all those those credit card bills and look at the interest rate and then rank them highest to lowest. And then the avalanche approach is you would take the money and hammer home the one with the highest debt first, and then work your way down. These are two approaches that you could take. Depends on where you are with your money journey, but a great opportunity for you to make this lower those debts so that you don't have to be under that yoke. But there's also another thing I'd like to talk about, which is leveraging a 0% credit card. So typically in January, February, and March, a lot of banks send out notices to their customers saying, hey, if you get a new credit card with us, you could transfer over that old debt at that higher interest rate to a 0% credit card. These actually work really well if you're able to do a couple of things. One, you're able to pay it off in a 12-month time frame, the whole debt. If you're going from 29.9 to 0%, that's actually a lot of savings that you can really work to pay it down. And there is typically a 2 to 3% transfer fee that they would charge you on the balance. And I know that's you're giving out some more money, but you're going to be saving on that high interest rate. And I think that's what's really important. So if you see this or you go to your bank and talk to them about that, especially if you have high interest rate on credit cards, that could be a great way for you to really lower that rate. Another thing you can do if you don't have that option is I'd like you to call your bank or your credit card company. And I would like you to ask them to lower the interest rate. We did a test with some friends. 4 of us did it together. We all called. And 3 out of the 4 got the rate lowered from 19.9 to 11.9, again, for 12 months. They did not have a 0% interest rate at that time, but we did try it and it actually did work. So if you could, put a little bit of time, maybe on a Saturday morning, talk to your bank, talk to your credit card and see what they can do for you. Because typically they want you to pay it off. They want you to continue shopping. But for me, the most important thing to tackle debt is just getting rid of it, especially those ones that are the highest interest. So one thing that I really believe in as well is seeing is believing. If you track something, the likelihood of you doing it is going to be higher. So we have a debt crusher here, which is really a great Excel sheet. It's interactive. You'll be able to type in the amount that you actually owe. It's divided by 100. And then this is going to give you a way to see you actually making those debts go away. What I asked for you to do, you can download it on my site. It's free. You print it out. You put it somewhere that you're going to see it every day. I want you to be motivated to get that debt down. And this could be a great way to help you motivate you along that journey of crushing that debt. As we get to the end of our presentation, the big thing I want to talk to you about is owning our money. How do we, as women, take control of our money? And it's really by taking stock of where we are today, making a plan for tomorrow, and ensuring that we are paying ourselves first, taking care of our money. We work really hard to make it. I don't want it to slip through our hands. I really want you to feel empowered that we're able to own the money and put that money to work. And while we are here building this great community and having conversations about money, that's another thing. A lot of women don't speak a lot about money when it comes to how much we make, how much we spend, what our interest rates we are paying. And every single one of my male friends, this is a conversation that we have on the daily. They talk about real estate and where they're investing. And a lot of my female friends were starting there, but it's not 100% yet. So I really want us to be an advocate for ourselves, to talk more about money, build your confidence when it comes to managing your money, and most importantly, putting your money to work. So again, go to your bank, go to your financial planner. Do not be shy to advocate for yourself and have these types of conversations so that you could nip your debt, you could invest more, you have a plan for your retirement, and you have a plan for your future. So in summary, I want us to take an honest look about where we stand, look at our needs and our wants. Do we actually really need to buy that third red dress or those leather pants if we're on our journey to build our savings and start investing? I really want you to automate those savings by leveraging a spending plan to help you put a percentage aside every single paycheck and ensure that you are paying yourself first. Really start about investing. It's never, ever, ever too late to start investing. So the earlier that you start, the better. But even if you're later in life, as long as you start there, that's also important. And it doesn't matter how much that you're going to be investing. The point is just to start putting in. I don't care if it's $5 a pay. As long as you're starting, that's the best way forward. The one thing I often talk about is financial literacy. This is what I really enjoy doing and just giving back to our female community. Financial literacy is really a life skill, like learning how to ride a bike, driving, or swimming. It's not taught a lot in school, and places like this or blogging is a great way to share insights and build up that skill. And last but not least, as we spoke about, debt is a killer. I need us to really ensure that we are crushing that debt so that you could invest and save for your future. And that's it. I am, Sylvia said, a Concordia grad. Loved my time at Concordia. Loved this community. I have the site, Bacon and Heels. Please email me, follow me. I'm on Instagram. I answer each and every one of the questions. And with that, I'll open it back up to Sylvia. Any questions that the crew has to share?
Thank you, Beverly. What an insightful presentation. Thank you so much. Here we go. The chat is going wild. I know you didn't see that while you were talking, and we received lots of questions prior. We're not going to get to all of them, but I think some of them come up again and again. There's several that I highlighted. And thank you all for submitting them. And we just see this as such an important conversation. Should spouses invest independently or together?
It's a great question.
It's a great question. That's why I wanted to start with that.
I love that. It all depends on you. Myself and my husband, we talk about it a lot. But he has his account and I have my account, and we make sure we're not investing in the same thing so we could diversify between ourselves. But if you want to, that'll be great. The two of you could come together and decide how you could invest for your future. Obviously, as ladies, I always like to have my own account. I would always say, please keep your own account as well.
And I also think on joint things, they should be joint. They should have both of your names on them, should they not? As women, to
100%.
protect yourselves. On your mortgages, the house should be under your name and your spouse's name, right? I've
Yes,
worked with a lot of
yes,
couples and women, and their names were not on there, just thinking, well, it'll come to me, but then something happens and the money doesn't get to them. So that.
exactly. Same
And
thing with
also,
having your own bank account. If I just pop in there for a second.
yes, go ahead.
Same thing having your own bank account. Yes, it's great to be in a partnership and great. I always ensure that women, even if it's small, a small bank account in your name, that is your
Yes,
money. You know, I think what's really important is savings is great for saving for a house, a car, whatever, but saving and having that independence of money is also good because you could leave any situation that no longer serves you. A job, a relationship, a situation one evening, you want to leave a bar or restaurant, whatever, knowing that you have that money in your own account that you could access at any time is power and
it
really
is.
important.
Yes, definitely. Coming back to, there was a lot of questions about homes and buying homes and the FHSA, the first, isn't that the first home savings account, or is it
Yes.
can you talk about that?
First, first home savings account. I must make sure I have that word right. Is it
I
first
don't
home?
know. I
Yes,
don't know
first
if
home
that's,
savings account.
yeah,
It
yeah.
is. So I think that is another great opportunity that our government has provided us with. This allows you, I'm just going to make sure I have the numbers right. You have an annual contribution limit of $8,000 and a lifetime contribution limit of $40,000. So you can put up to $40,000 for your first home. You're allowed to carry forward unused annual contribution limits of a maximum of $8,000. But the killer is it is tax deductible. So, like your RRSP, it's deductible, so is this.
Right.
Another tool to help us save for something that's quite large in terms of saving for your rainy day or saving for your home day.
Yeah. And I know the market right now, I feel for the younger generations. I used
Mm-hmm.
we called it a wrap at the time, and it allowed me to buy my first home and then buy my second. I could sell the first home. Getting in
Yeah,
the market now is so much more expensive. So a tool
it
like
is.
this, you would say yes to someone saying, I do need some money. I don't have $100,000 to put towards my house. So using these
Yes.
tools would be, how do you get into the market?
Exactly. Again, go to your bank and talk to them about that. But that could be a great way. You could also leverage. Remember, I told you about the lady who put her 7,000 or TFSA. Let's say you know that you're going to buy a house in 5 years. You're going to invest that money. You could also leverage your TFSA if you're making profit in that. That's going to help you
You can
accelerate
put,
you putting down more money onto your home. A good friend of mine, I have a lot of friends. A good friend of mine, she actually is gifting her child with some money to help him buy his first property, which is going to be a duplex or a triplex right here in Montreal. And that's going to be her way of giving him a bit of a boost because there's no way he's 22, 23. He hasn't saved up enough.
yeah.
And I don't think he can make it in the next 3, 4, 5 years because every year the housing prices are going up.
So it comes to, there's a lot of questions about which one do I choose? Do I choose the TFSA, the RRSP, the FHSA? So there, I think what you talked about the TFSA and the RRSP, one being longer term, I believe, the
Right?
TFSA
Yes,
being, the RRSP is longer term, TFSA is medium term, and I guess FHSA is when you want to buy a home.
exactly.
So I understand that the buying a home, that is more, pressing, or, I have that goal.
Mhm.
But if it's longer term, like would it TFSA or RRSP, which one do I invest
Depends
in?
on who you are, depends on how much money you're making, depends on if you're closer to retirement, if you're younger, you're older. You have to really look at where you stand today. So let's say, I'm making it up, you're 30, you're single, you have your first apartment, and you're getting an RSP help from your organization. If your company is helping you, giving you a 2%, that is free money. Do what you need to do to get that free money in your RSP. If they do something for you with the TFSA as well, that's quite helpful. But again, really look at where you are and where you want to be. Personally, I have both. and I
Right.
leverage both every single year, but I'm at a different place in my life than somebody else. I see both vehicles as a great way to really leverage the time.
Right. And what about these tools versus a high savings account?
So high interest savings account, those are great. Those are typically now between 3 and 4%. And that's a great way for you to park money out of your regular savings account that you can earn some interest on. Remember, interest is taxable income, and that will be added to your taxes at the end of the year.
Would
But
that
I'd
be
rather you
shorter
do that.
term? That would be more of
It could
perhaps a
be
shorter term. I know next year I'm going to need $1,000 or whatever, so I can put it in there.
exactly. That is the absolute best way to do it. And one thing is interesting is a lot of women have money in our checking account just sitting there making
Yeah.
0% interest. This is a great way for, as you're figuring out what you want to do with it, make a little bit of money on it. Even if it's like a couple $100, just put it out of the checking account into a high
A
interest
high,
savings account, or high yield savings, depending on
right.
what the
That
bank
you can
calls it.
just transfer afterwards. Now, we've talked a lot about salaried employees here. What about
Mhm.
those entrepreneurs? We have a lot of them at Concordia. And how do you manage budgeting in that case when you don't have that paycheck every 2 weeks?
So that is a great, that's why the spending plan is really important. So figuring out how much you would like to make in that year, making sure that you're getting the contracts that could help sustain you throughout your time. I would say instead of putting something locked away in an RSP every month, maybe you could hold that until the end of the year and then determine how you would put that money. And I know that could be sound a little bit counterintuitive. People want to buy into the market throughout the year, so you're buying at high and low points and making your money go a bit further. But if you're not sure how much you are going to be getting, maybe just holding off on the RSP for a little bit until the end of the year, and then you could put something in there. But that doesn't stop you from putting money into your TFSA, because you're able to take money out and in to that account as long as you do not go over the limit. So you have to be very careful about taking money in and out. The TFSA, if you put in more than you are allowed to, the fines are quite substantial.
They
On the
fine you.
RR,
Okay.
they fine you. On the
Okay.
RRSP, I think the limit is $2,000 is what you could go over without being fined. And then after that, there's a fine as well. Or
Right.
a fine is the wrong word, a penalty, excuse me.
Mm. There have been some questions about paying debt. So we talked about
Mhm.
the high credit cards, but let's say I'm paying a student debt, or let's say, give that example, a student debt, and I want to buy a car, which will allow me to drive to potential workplaces and interviews and whatnot.
Mhm.
Can I buy that car, or should I wait till I pay off my student debt? How do we juggle these types of decisions?
Those are huge decisions. I
Yeah.
like to look at it really pragmatically. Depends how much the debt is. So if you're going to buy a car that's, I don't know, 10, 12, $15,000, you're fresh out of school, but you owe $20,000 on your school debt. One, is the interest on this going higher, or which one's higher? Is it the school debt interest is higher, or the car? Can you maybe hold off on getting the car for a little bit and take public transportation and take that money you would be putting to the car to nip that off? If it's not possible, like the job you have is really, really far away, then you really have to sit down and determine, maybe could you lease a car for a short number of time to help you pay that down? Because if you're putting money towards a car, which is a depreciable asset, I would love for you to get rid of the school fees, the school debt.
Yeah, and we're not even
Again,
talking about investing at this point, because I'm assuming that person
exactly,
is not even investing. We often are trying to get the debt paid off and keep
exactly.
investing for a long time away. So the
Yes,
higher interest rates, yeah, looking at what is costing us more.
exactly. And again, depends how big the school debt is and what that rate is. I know we're in Canada, so we are a bit more, we're better than what's happening in the US, but their way how they're sending their kids to school. But I think, again, really sit down and figure out, do I really need this car? Do I really need this car? Can I find another way just to nip this debt? And then the extra money that you would have put towards the car, perhaps you could put that into your TFSA.
Mm.
So just really, I know everybody's different, so try to figure out a way that works really for you and your family.
And the same, I would imagine, going, many of us have mortgages that are long-term investments, but they're, cost a lot of money. We should also be investing at the same time, right? Or should we be putting more on that mortgage to get that paid down?
Depends, again, how much money you make a year, where you are on your financial journey. If you're locked in right now at those lucky rates we had a few years ago, 1%, 2%, and you are good at nipping that down and investing, that's a great way. If you could put a little bit more on your house, especially if we're thinking interest rates are going to be 4.5, if you could handle the load at 4.5 and not really change your lifestyle, maybe you don't need to do that. And you can put more money into investing. If you see that you're going to be changing your mortgage in a little bit and you're nervous about paying a higher interest rate, then I would try to put more money on your home. Again, you really need to sit down and look at everything that you have and figure out what really suits you best and your family best. Because there's no one size fits all.
There really isn't. I mean, if you look, if we have children to put into school, or, or we're having children, we need a larger home. I mean, every situation is so different.
So different.
Talk to me, Bev, about Wealthsimple, Equistrade. All of these platforms are coming up now where I can invest myself, I can buy things myself, or as you mentioned, you didn't talk about these, you kept talking about going to a financial planner. Can you talk to me about the differences?
Yes. So these are great organizations. Wealthsimple is Canadian, which is also quite cool, where we could use their robo advisors to help us invest. They typically provide a little bit more in terms of savings interest, fewer fees, but that does not discount you from going to your bank. They also have those vehicles as well through different types of mutual funds, ETFs, and the like. Now that you're educated, I want you to go to your bank and say, hey, I saw what Wealthsimple is giving. Can you match it? What can you do to help me move this forward? 9 times out of 10, they will be able to help you find a vehicle to help you at a lower rate. So again, the more we know, the more we educate ourselves, the more we can advocate for ourselves. When we go and talk to that bank, that will be an easier way for us to move forward. But if you like Wealthsimple or Questrade, there's E-Trade, those ones are also quite good. You need to read the fine print. I know that the commercials on TV are saying, we serve less, we have less interest. They do. I need you to read the fine print and really educate yourself.
And there was a good question in the chat about not trusting our financial planners. And I myself have had to deal with that, having had ones that didn't serve me well. So now I'm reticent about working with anybody. How do we go about, and there's another question. You're not a financial planner. Perhaps let's start with the difference between a coach and a planner, and how do we know we're being well served by our planner?
Okay, perfect. So for me, I'm a financial literacy coach. I want to empower everybody here to learn more about their money. This was not taught in schools. I was very fortunate to have a family that we talked about this at around our dinner table. So I'm coming with a little bit of a difference, kind of a privilege, if you will, because that was a part of our daily conversation, but not everybody had that opportunity. So I'm coaching you on things to look for, questions to ask, knowledge base, so that when you go to a bank or a financial planner to help you, you're walking in there on a high. You're not asking them to help you understand. You already have a nice basis. So I agree with you. It's like you're dating. You need to find that person that gets you, that understands you. He or she, they are not there to push products towards you. So I think you should interview them. I think you should go meet a couple of different organizations and ask them the questions that are important to you. How do you work? How often do you call me? Do you call me once a quarter? When I call you, what's the average time that you call me back? You don't want to hear from your person once a year when it's tax time. You should be having regular conversations with that person regardless if you have $1,000 or $1 million, everybody should be treated with respect and treated in the way that you need to be treated with your asset. You're giving them your money to manage. Let's be sure you're on the same wavelength. And if you walk away from that interview and you're not feeling it, go to somebody else. We are privileged in this country to have amazing banks. Go to all of them, talk with them. It takes 10 minutes to pick up the phone and call and get an appointment. Please, please do that. Maybe don't do all 5, do 2.
But you maybe start with your own.
Yeah, start with your own. And then maybe somebody close by, that there's a bank across the street, down the street, same neighborhood. And maybe also ask your friends, who do they use? Are you happy with them? That's also a great way to get a nice reference.
Wonderful. I'm just looking here.
Yeah, I see them coming in here. It's
I
wonderful.
know you do. It's great.
I love it.
Bev said that for the questions that she didn't get to, she will write up perhaps a small FAQ or short FAQ for the ones. But we've gotten to a lot of these questions. What about resources? Do you listen to any podcasts or have people that you follow in the industry?
I do. So there's an oldie but goodie. It's a book called The Automatic Millionaire by David Bach. Really life-changing. That's where I got the whole thing about, something, he's right. Every time you get paid, you pay yourself first. My dad used to tell me that. I was mowing lawns as a kid, and he was like, you get paid for $20 to do the lawn, $10 goes to you, $10 goes to fun. And that's what I did. He was telling me, pay yourself first before it became a thing. And then reading this book from David Bach, I think is really good. I also really enjoy reading blogs on different people, not just in Canada. I like to see things in the US as well. Elvest is one. Sally Krawchuk used to be a senior executive at one of the big firms on Wall Street. I've been fangirl of hers for years, since I saw her on the front page of Fortune magazine, and I've been following her. And even though we can't invest there,
I know, I looked into it. It's an American site, but a lot of the information is still quite relevant. Yes,
a lot of information is relevant. Things like RRSP here is their 401k, TFSA, their IRA. So it's similar. But again, if we're getting the conversation going, go online. And again, the internet really democratized information. I like to take a lot of information, read it, understand it, and question. Just because somebody said it online doesn't mean it's the truth, right? But getting that information going, I think, is really good. Oh, somebody asked the American. It's Elvest. It's Sally Krawchuk. Krawchek, I think.
Yeah, just go on Elvest. And I think I've got a couple more, but there was one question and I really liked it. It was about, how do I live as if it's my last day on earth? And, but knowing that I'm probably going to be living a lot, many more years.
Oh, I see. That's a good question. Who asked that?
I don't have the name, but I just I like that idea. And I like it because my kids are teens and they're on social media and they see trips to Bora Bora and outfits for $500 and they don't have that concept of money. As we get into adulthood, we do have the concept of money, but we're still living over our means. Many people are. So how, and I know, you don't like the word budget. However, the first slide that you did show was a budget, and looking at our, how do you do that with your clients?
So you live for today and plan for tomorrow. So that 10% of fun, I use that to save up for our annual trip. We have fun. We put all the names of cities in a hat, and every year at Easter time, we pull it, and then that's what we are going to do that year. So we plan for it. And being able to have a little bit of savings on the side in an account allows us to live for today, but we're saving for tomorrow. So I am a big believer in that. We're not just here to pay bills. We have to live and enjoy the short time that we're here. And I really believe in having a goal and objective for the future, working towards that, but also living today. So it's a balance, looking at your money and see what's important to you, is also quite important.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes, thank you so much, Bev, for sharing all of this
Sure.
wealth of information. I thoroughly enjoyed this.
I'm glad.
If people would like to reach out to you, we're going to put Bev's comments in the chat. Not comments, but we can reach you
Yeah.
at Instagram, your links,
Yep.
your Instagram and Bacon and your website is
Yes. And heels.com.
You are also on LinkedIn, where
Yes.
I found you there. Before we head out, I did want to let everybody know that we do, talking about LinkedIn, have a wonderful LinkedIn group with about 800 Concordia women. We post about what's coming up, events like this, what other branches of Concordia are doing, and we're going to put that link in the chat. I would love for you to join. We can actually continue this conversation with some questions in the LinkedIn group as well, so please join us there. As you may or may not know, we also have, we raise funds for the Women Who Lead student bursary, and we've raised close to $45,000 since its inception. If you've enjoyed this free webinar and would like to help a student in need, any donation, big or small, is much appreciated. You can use the QR code that's on your phone, right on your screen. You can use it with your phone. And there's a link in the chat as well to donate to that.
Absolutely.
It's a
And especially for
wonderful.
anything for women and students, I'm all for it. And again, we will have those questions. We got a lot of great questions. I'll do an FAQ at the end and share that with everybody so you can.
Yes, I'm sure we didn't get to all of them, and I apologize for those that we didn't answer. We also have a great webinar. It's Women's History Month and International Women's Day coming up in March. Our next webinar is March 26th. Book that in your books right now. It's called Reverse the Trend, Women Who Lead in Male-Dominated Fields. And we have Monique Jérôme-Forget, a former politician, Corinne Charette, also worked for government, and she is now our director of the District 3 in tech. And we have Stephanie Bitten, who's in animation. She owns her own company, Entrepreneurs. That's going to be a lot of fun. And Beverly, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. I look forward
Thank you,
to
everybody, for joining.
Working on their money and building our own wealth. We're going to catch you next month.
Cool.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.